Excuse me. This is Federal Reserve Bank, Section 4. Federal Reserve Bank, Section 4. Federal Reserve Bank. When the organization committee shall have established Federal Reserve districts as prescribed in Section 2 of this Act, a certificate shall be filed with the comptroller of the currency showing the geographical limits of such districts and the Federal Reserve city designated in each of such districts. The comptroller of currency shall thereupon cause to be forwarded to each national bank located in each district and to such other banks declared to be eligible by the organization committee, which may apply therefore an application blank in form to be approved by the organization committee, which blank shall contain a resolution to be adopted by the board of directors of each bank executing such application, authorizing a subscription to the capital stock of the Federal Reserve Bank, organizing in that district in accordance with the provisions of this act, omitted from the United States Code. Omitted. So, 2, organization certificate. Organization certificate. When the minimum amount of capital stock prescribed by this act for the organization of any Federal Reserve Bank shall have been subscribed and allotted, the organization committee shall designate any 5 banks of those whose applications have been received to execute a certificate of organization, and thereupon the bank so designated shall, under their seals, make an organization certificate which shall specifically state the name of such Federal Reserve Bank, the territorial extent of the district over which the city and state in which said bank is to be located, any amount of capital stock, and the number of shares into which the same is divided, the name and place of doing business of each bank executing such certificate, and of all banks which have subscribed to the capital stock of such Federal Reserve Bank, and the number of shares subscribed by each, and the fact that the certificate is made to enable those banking executing same, and all banks which have subscribed or may thereafter subscribe to the capital stock of such Federal Reserve Bank to avail themselves of the advantages of this act, omitted from the U.S. Code. 3. Acknowledgement and filing. Acknowledgement and filing. The said organization certificate shall be acknowledged before a judge of some court of record or notary public, and shall be, together with the acknowledgement thereof, authenticated by the seal of such court or notary, committed to the comptroller of the currency, who shall file, record, and carefully preserve the same in his office. Omitted from United States Code. So many omitted. General corporate powers. 4. General corporate powers. Upon the filing of such certificate with the comptroller of the currency, as foresaid, the said Federal Reserve Bank shall become a body corporate and as such, and in the name designated in such organization certificate shall have power first to adopt use a corporate seal, second to have succession after the approval of this act until dissolved by act of Congress or until forfeiture of franchise for violation of law. Third, to make contracts. Fourth, to sue and be sued, complain and defend in any court of law or equity. Fifth, to appoint by its board of directors a president, vice president, and such officers and employees as are not otherwise provided for this act, to define their duties, require bonds for them, and fix the penalty thereof, and to dismiss at pleasure such officers or employees. The president shall be a chief executive officer of the bank and shall be appointed by the Class B and Class C directors of the bank with the approval of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for a term of 5 years, and all other executive officers and all employees of the bank shall be directly responsible to the president. The first vice president of the bank shall be appointed in the same manner and for the same terms as the president, and shall, in the absence of disability of the president or during a vacancy in the office of president, serve as chief executive officer of the bank. Whenever a vacancy shall occur in the office of the president or the first vice president, it shall be filed in the manner provided for original appointments, and the person so appointed shall hold office until the expiration of the terms of his procedure. Oh no, pro prodecessor, 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 and his predecessors. So it says predecessors, a person through whom an owner's title to land is traced. Examples are a previous owner who sold, bequeathed, or settled the land, and a mortgagee who exercised his power to sell. From predecessor in AR. Is a person through whom an owner title to land is traced, like the original indigenous peoples. Wow. Sixth, to prescribe by his board of directors bylaws not inconsistent with law, regulating the manner in which its general business may be conducted and the privileges granted to it by law may be exercised and enjoyed. 7. to exercise by its board of directors or duly authorized officers or agents all powers specifically granted by the provisions of this act, and such incidental powers shall be necessary to carry on the business of banking within the limitations prescribed by this act. Eighth, upon deposit with the Treasurer of the United States of any bonds of the United States in the manner provided by existing law relating to national banks, to receive from the Secretary of Treasury circulating notes in blank, registered or countersigned as provided by law, equal in amount to the par value of the bonds so deposited, such notes to be issued under the same conditions and provisions of law as related to the issue of circulating notes of national banks secured by bonds of the United States bearing the circulating privilege, except that the issue of such notes shall not be limited to the capital stock of such Federal Reserve Bank, codified at 12 United States Code 341. 5. Authority to commence business. But no Federal Reserve Bank shall transact any business except such as is incidental and necessarily primarily to its organization until it has been authorized by the Comptroller of the Currency to commence business under the provisions of this Act, 12 United States Code 341. 6. Board of Directors. Every Federal Reserve Bank shall be conducted under the provisions and control of a Board of Directors, codified at 12 U.S.C. 301. 7. Duties of Directors generally. The Board of Directors shall perform the duties usually appertaining to the office of directors of banking associations and all such. The Board of Directors shall perform the duty usually appertaining to the office of directors of banking associations and all such duties as are prescribed by law, codified at 12 U.S. Code 301. 8. Administration of affairs, extension of credit. Said Board of Directors shall administer the affairs of said bank affairs and impartially and without discrimination in favor of or against any member bank or banks, and may, subject to the provisions of law and the orders of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, extend to each member bank such discounts, advantages, and accommodations as may be safely and reasonably made with due regard for the claims and demands of other member banks, the maintenance of sound credit conditions, and accommodations of commerce, industry, and agriculture. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System may prescribe regulations further refining within the limitations of this act the conditions under which discounts, advantages, and accommodations may be extended to member banks. Each Federal Reserve Bank shall keep itself informed Each Federal Reserve Bank shall keep itself informed and in general character and amount of the loans and investments of its member banks with a view to ascertaining whether undue use is being made of bank credit for the speculative carrying of and trading in securities, real estate, or commodities, or for any other purpose inconsistent with the maintenance of sound credit conditions, and in determining whether the grant or refusal advances, redresses, or other credit accommodations, the Federal Reserve Bank shall give consideration to such information. The chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank shall report to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve Bank any such overdue use of bank credits by any member bank, together with his recommendation, whenever, in the judgment of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, any member bank is making such undue use of blank credit, the board may, in its discretion, after reasonable notice and an opportunity for a hearing, suspend such bank from the use of the credit facility of the Federal Reserve System, and may terminate such suspension or may renew it from time to time, codified at 12 U.S.C. 301, 9, number and classing of directors. That's number and classes of directors. Such board of directors shall be subjected as hereinafter specified, and shall consist of 9 members holding office for 3 years, and divided into 3 classes designated as Class A, B, and C. 12 U.S. Code 302. 10. Class A directors. Class A shall consist of 3 members without discrimination on the basis of race, creed, color, sex, or national organization, who shall be chosen by or be representative of the stock holding bank, codified at 12 United States Code 302. Class B directors. Class B shall consist of 3 members who shall represent the public and shall be elected without discrimination on the basis of race, creed, color, sex, or national organization, and with due and not and do not and with due but not on the basis of color, creed, blah blah blah, national organization, and with due but not exclusive consideration to the interests of agriculture, commerce, industry, service, labor, and consumers. 12 United States Code 302. Class C directors. Class C shall consist of 3 members who shall be designated by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. They shall be elected to represent the public without discrimination on the basis of race, creed, color, sex, or national origin, and with due but not exclusive consideration to the interests of agriculture, commerce, industry, services, labor, and consumers, when the necessary subscriptions to the capital stock have been obtained for the organization of any Federal Reserve Bank. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System shall appoint the Class C directors and shall designate one of such directors as chairman of the board to be selected. Pending the designation of such chairman, the organization committee shall exercise the powers and duties appertaining to the office of chairman in the organization of such Federal Reserve Bank, partially incorporated in 12 United States Code 302. 13. Senator and representative ineligible. No senator or representative in Congress shall be a member of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System or an officer or a director of a Federal Reserve Bank codified in 12 U.S.C. 301. 14. Classified B director as employee of banks. No director of Class B shall be an officer, director, or employee of any bank. 12 United States Code 303. 15. Class C directors as employees or stockholders of bank. No director of Class C shall be an officer, director, employee, or stockholder of any bank, codified at 12 U.S.C. 303. 16. Nomination and election of Class A and B directors. Directors of Class A and Class B shall be chosen in the following manner. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System shall classify the number banks of the district into the 3 general groups or divisions, designating each group by number. Each group shall consist as nearly as may be of banks of similar capitalization. Each member bank shall be permitted to nominate to the chairman of the board of directors of the Federal Reserve Bank of the district one candidate for director of Class A and one candidate for director Class B. The candidates so nominated shall be listed by the chairman, indicating by whom nominated, and a copy of said list shall, within 15 days after its completion, be furnished by the chairman to each member bank. Each member bank, by the resolution of the board, or by any amendment to its bylaws, shall authorize the president, cashier, or some other to cast the vote of the member vote of the member bank in the election of Class A and B directors, provided that whether any member bank within the same Federal Reserve district or subsidiaries of the same bank holding company, bank holding company, within the means of the Bank Holding Company Act of 1956, participation in any such nomination or election by such member banks banks shall be confined to one of such banks which may be designated for the purpose of such holding company. 12-304. 17. Preferential ballot. Within 15 days after receipt of the list of candidates, the duly authorized officer of a member bank shall certify to the chairman his right, second, and other choices for director of Class A and Class B, respectively, upon a preferential ballot upon a form furnished by the chairman of the board of directors of the Federal Reserve Bank of the district. Each such officer shall make a cross opposite the name of the first, second, and other choices for a director of Class A and for a director of Class B, but shall not vote more than one choice for any one candidate. No officer or director of a member bank shall be eligible to serve as Class A director unless nominated and elected by banks which are members of the same group as the member bank of which he is an officer or director. Codified in 12 United States Code 304. 18. Candidates serving more than one member bank. Any person who is an officer or director of more than one member bank shall not be eligible for nominations as a Class A director except by banks in the same group as the bank having the largest aggregate resource of any of those of which such person is an officer or director. 12 United States Code 304. 19. Counting to ballot. Any candidate having a majority of all votes cast in a column of first choice shall be declared elected. If no candidate have a majority of all the votes in the first column, then there shall be added together the votes cast by the electors for such candidates in the second column, and the votes cast for the several candidates in the first column, the candidates having a majority of the electors voting, and the highest number of combined votes shall be declared elected. If no candidate have a majority of electors voting and the highest number of votes when the first and second choice shall have been added, then the voters cast in the third column for other choices shall be added together in like manner, and the candidate then having the highest number of votes shall be declared elected. An immediate report of elections shall be declared. 12 United States Code 304. 20. Class C directors, chairman, and Federal Reserve agent, deputy chairman, Class C directors shall be appointed by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. They shall have been for at least 2 years residents of the district for which they are appointed, one of whom shall be designated by said Board of Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Federal Reserve Bank, and as Federal Reserve agent, he shall be a person of tested banking experience. And in addition to his duty as chairman of the board of directors of the Federal Reserve Bank, he shall be required to maintain, under regulations to be established by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, a local office of said board on the premises of the Federal Reserve Bank. He shall make regular reports to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and shall act as its official representatives for the performance of the functions conferred upon it by this act. He shall receive an annual compensation. He shall receive an annual compensation to be fixed by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and paid monthly by the Federal Reserve Bank to which he is designated. One of the directors of Class C shall be appointed by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System as deputy chairman to exercise the powers of the chairman of the board when necessary. In case of the absence of the chairman and the deputy chairman, the third Class C director shall preside at meetings of the board. That's codified at 12 U.S.C. 305. We'll come back. We're going to get to 21. Assistant Federal Reserve agents. 21. Assistant Federal Reserve agents.